Have you ever wondered why the very presence of a mysterious woman can make a man tremble with both desire and dread? He cannot look away, yet he cannot look too long. Something within him, something older than language itself, awakens in the face of feminine mystery. It is not merely beauty that unsettles him, nor charm, nor wit. It is the ineffable, the aura of the unknown, that bends his psyche between compulsion and fear. Carl Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine image within a man's unconscious, and it is here that we begin to see why he both longs for and recoils from her presence. The mystery of woman is not just external, it is internal to his own soul, the reflection of all he has denied within himself. When a man meets such a woman, he feels as though he stands before a mirror of shadow and light. She is not only a person, she is the symbol of everything he has exiled from his conscious world. Her silence, her unpredictable moods, her enigmatic allure, all these things awaken the parts of him he cannot control. And so he both wants her and fears her. He clings, but he withdraws. He feels alive in her presence, but destabilized by the realization that she represents what he does not yet understand about himself. Have you noticed how quickly men call such women dangerous or too much? It is not danger she brings, but revelation. The danger lies in the dismantling of his illusion of control. A man, raised in a world that praises rationality, logic, and linear strength, meets in the feminine mystery a force that cannot be reasoned with. Like the moon that governs tides, her presence stirs the unconscious. She is not chaos, though he calls her so. She is the order of another dimension, a rhythm he has forgotten. The Stoics taught that control lies within one's self. But what happens when the self is split by forces unknown? Marcus Aurelius urged men to master their minds, but what man can claim mastery when confronted with desire that is not logical, attraction that is not explainable, and fear that is not physical but existential? This is why the feminine mystery pulls him like a magnet, because it unsettles the false foundation of his supposed mastery. Look closer at his reaction: addiction and avoidance. He finds excuses to leave, yet cannot stop returning. He criticizes her moods, yet obsesses over her absence. He swears he wants freedom, yet his thoughts circle back to her in quiet hours. It is not her body alone he craves. It is the intoxication of standing on the threshold of the unknown. Just as one is drawn to the edge of a dark forest, terrified yet compelled, so he is drawn to her. She is the wilderness that civilization taught him to suppress, and in her he remembers something primal, something ancient, something lost. But mystery is not merely about concealment. It is about presence without explanation. The woman who embodies this is not performing. She is not calculating. She simply exists in her fullness, unapologetic, enigmatic, self-contained. This autonomy terrifies him. A woman who does not need to explain herself, who does not hand over every thought like a confession, unsettles his need for dominance. He wonders, what is she hiding? But in truth, she is hiding nothing. Her mystery is not a trick. It is her wholeness, her refusal to be dissected, her alignment with something larger than him. And this is why he becomes addicted. Because in her presence he glimpses his own incompleteness. He cannot own her, yet he cannot release her. She awakens the paradox within his own psyche, the longing for union and the terror of dissolution. Have you ever seen a man both chase and run from the same woman? This is not weakness. It is the reflection of an archetypal battle. His ego wants certainty, control, definition. But his unconscious yearns for surrender, for a return to something fluid, cyclical, and eternal. And she embodies that. Her mystery is not about secrecy, but about depth. And depth always frightens those who live only on the surface. This is why her laughter can thrill him. He tells himself she is irrational, moody, too complex. But beneath his words lies the truth. He cannot control what she awakens within him. The feminine mystery is not about drama or volatility. It is about depth that resists simplification. He wants her to be clear, predictable, easy to define. Yet if she were, she would cease to be the very thing that calls to him. Men crave the map, but the feminine is the ocean. And who has ever conquered the ocean without eventually drowning in its vastness? Jung knew this when he described the anima as the guide to a man's soul. She is the voice that speaks from dreams, the muse behind his greatest works, and the temptation that leads him into chaos when he resists her call. That is why her presence unsettles him. She carries the fragrance of his own unintegrated self. She does not belong to him. She belongs to the mystery of life itself. And by encountering her, he is confronted with a choice: integrate the shadow she reveals, or run endlessly from his own truth. Watch him closely. When a woman radiates this mystery, he does not see her as she truly is. He sees his projections. He calls her angel, muse, witch, seductress. He lifts her onto a pedestal, only to tear her down when she fails to live up to his fantasy. This is not about her. It is about him. For every man carries within him a deep hunger for the feminine principle, and when he finds a woman who embodies it, he projects his unlived life onto her. She becomes both goddess and demon in his eyes. That is the paradox of addiction and fear. He both deifies and vilifies the same presence, unable to accept that what he pursues is not her, but his own soul. And yet, the woman who embodies mystery is not destroyed by this. If she has stepped into her own individuation, she will not crumble beneath his projections. She will not chase his validation, nor shrink herself to fit his comfort. She knows that his reaction belongs to him, not her. And this is where her power resides, in refusing to abandon her depth for the sake of his safety. Have you ever noticed that when a woman stands firmly in herself without apology, men feel both threatened and magnetized? That is not coincidence. That is archetypal truth. Men have been taught to fear what they cannot control. Stoic philosophers like Seneca urge discipline, restraint, detachment. Yet even the Stoics knew that the true test of strength was not avoidance of feeling, but mastery of it. The feminine mystery does not bow to discipline, it transcends it. A man who seeks to dominate her will find only frustration. But a man who seeks to understand what she awakens within himself may discover transformation. Because she does not come to destroy him, she comes to reveal him to himself. And yet, many will resist. They will retreat into shallow relationships, into performance, into numbing distractions. Because to face the feminine mystery is to face the abyss of one's own unconscious. To look into her eyes is to realize that control is an illusion, that the heart cannot be managed like an empire. And so he oscillates between longing and fear, never fully surrendering, never fully letting go. He lives in torment, addicted to the presence that unsettles him, unable to resolve the paradox. But what about you? Have you ever felt the tension between your own depth and the world's demand for simplicity? Have you silenced your mystery to make yourself easier to love, easier to hold? And what did it cost you? Because the truth is this: a woman who hides her depth for the sake of a man's comfort becomes invisible, ordinary, replaceable. But the woman who dares to remain a mystery, who refuses to be defined too quickly, becomes unforgettable. She imprints on his soul like a dream he cannot shake. The feminine mystery is not a trick. It is not manipulation or a mask. It is the natural radiance of a woman who embodies her own depth, who allows her silence, her contradictions, her shadows, and her light to coexist. She is not afraid of being misunderstood, because she knows that those who fear her mystery are not meant to hold her, and those who are drawn to it may find, if they are courageous enough, not just her love, but their own liberation. There is a moment every man faces when he realizes that the feminine cannot be possessed. He may hold her body, he may cling to her presence, but the mystery remains beyond his reach. This is why he fears her, because her essence is not contained by ownership. She is not a prize to be won, nor a puzzle to be solved. She is a mirror that reflects back the hollowness of his control. To stand before her mystery is to face the limits of his power, And for many men, that confrontation feels like death. Jung wrote that the anima drags a man into the underworld of his unconscious. She compels him to feel what he has repressed, to see what he has buried, to remember what he has denied. That is why men oscillate between worship and hatred when confronted with a woman of depth. She awakens in him not only longing, but also terror. Longing because she carries the taste of eternity. Terror because eternity cannot be domesticated. He is addicted to what frightens him because it calls him into wholeness, and wholeness requires the destruction of illusions. Do you see the paradox? The very thing he craves most is the very thing he resists with all his strength. He wants her passion, but not the chaos it awakens. He wants her softness, but not the vulnerability it demands of him. He wants her devotion, but not the mirror that exposes his weakness. So he tries to control, to define, to cage. And in doing so, he kills the very mystery that drew him near. How many men have destroyed the love they longed for, simply because they feared the truth it revealed about themselves? This is why the feminine mystery is both feared and craved. She is the gateway to transformation, but transformation requires death. Death of the ego, death of the illusion of control, death of the shallow masculinity that avoids depth at all costs. Most men are not prepared for such a death. They would rather cling to mediocrity than risk the abyss. But a few, a rare few, will surrender. And in surrender, they will not lose themselves, they will find themselves. The Stoics spoke of amor fati, the love of one's fate, to embrace what life brings, even when it wounds, even when it terrifies. The feminine mystery embodies amor fati. She is life itself, unpredictable, uncontrollable, endlessly shifting. To love her is to love fate, to love the storm, to love the unknown. A man who cannot accept this will never truly love her. He will only consume her, reduce her, attempt to make her smaller so that he can remain safe. But the man who accepts amor fati will meet her as she is, untamed, radiant, terrifyingly alive. And here lies the secret. The feminine mystery is not about seduction, though men will call it that. It is not about withholding, though men will accuse her of games. It is about presence. A woman who lives in alignment with her depth does not need to manipulate. She does not need to chase, to prove, to bend. Her very being radiates something that words cannot capture. She becomes the embodiment of the archetype itself, the anima in the flesh, the living reminder that life is not meant to be controlled, but experienced. Have you ever felt it in yourself? That quiet power that emerges when you no longer care to be understood, when you stop explaining, when you stop reducing your essence to something palatable. That is the mystery. It is not something you construct, it is something you allow. And when you allow it, men will both run and return. They will test your boundaries, they will project their shadows, they will try to make sense of you. But the woman who holds her ground does not bend for their comfort. She lets them wrestle with themselves, knowing that their reaction is not her burden to carry. And what happens then? The addiction deepens, because the more she resists being reduced, the more he feels drawn. The very impossibility of owning her becomes the source of her magnetism. She is like fire, untouchable, yet irresistible. He knows he could burn, and yet he reaches anyway, because to touch her is to feel alive, even if only for a fleeting moment. This is the truth Jung revealed. The feminine mystery is not an obstacle to men, but a path. A dangerous path, yes, but one that leads to the core of the soul. Whether a man resists or embraces it determines not only his relationships, but his destiny. For the feminine, when met with reverence, does not destroy, she resurrects. There is a silence that follows when a man has finally been undone by the feminine. It is not the silence of defeat, but of revelation. In that silence, he recognizes that she is not an object of conquest, but a force of nature, and that no amount of strategy, charm, or dominance can alter the truth. The feminine is not something to be won, it is something to be encountered. The encounter either breaks him or remakes him, and which way it goes depends entirely on his courage. The feminine mystery does not yield to half-hearted men. It does not open to those who seek to consume and discard. It responds only to depth. And this is where most men falter. They crave the nectar without embracing the roots. They want the flower, but not the soil that nourishes it. They admire the light of a woman's beauty, but shy away from the shadows that shape her soul. And yet, paradoxically, it is in the shadows where true connection is forged. Jung wrote of individuation, the process of becoming whole, and it is here that the feminine plays her most profound role. She drags the man, often unwillingly, into his own depths. Through her, he meets his brokenness, his fears, his inadequacies. She does not do this out of cruelty, but out of inevitability. The anima, as Jung described, is the bridge to the unconscious. Every time a man gazes into the eyes of a woman who embodies her depth, he is not just seeing her, he is seeing himself, refracted through her essence. This is why men both fear and desire her, because she awakens in them the truth they would rather avoid. Have you noticed how a man's behavior shifts when confronted with a woman who cannot be fooled? The nervous laughter, the bravado, the sudden distance followed by an obsessive return. These are not random reactions. They are signs of the unconscious at war with itself. He feels exposed in her presence, as though his masks are useless. And in truth, they are. For the feminine mystery does not bow to appearances. She pierces through the persona and strikes at the core. And yet, it is this very piercing that creates addiction. A man may resist, he may curse, he may attempt to control, but he will return. For once, he has glimpsed the truth of himself in the mirror of a woman's depth. Nothing else will satisfy. Shallow encounters will feel hollow. Distractions will lose their power. He may try to run back into the safety of superficiality, but his soul will remember. It is why some men chase women long after they are gone, not because of the woman alone, but because of the part of themselves she awakened. But here lies the danger for the woman. If she does not understand her power, she risks being consumed by their projections. Men who have not done their own shadow work will place upon her the burden of their fantasies and their fears. They will worship her one moment and vilify her the next. They will demand she carry their brokenness, expecting her to be muse, healer, mother, and lover all at once. This is not love. It is possession disguised as devotion. And unless she holds her ground, she will lose herself in their chaos. This is why boundaries are sacred. The woman who knows her worth does not allow herself to become the vessel of a man's unhealed wounds. She reflects, but she does not absorb. She witnesses, but she does not rescue. She understands that his fear of her mystery is his to resolve, his shadows his to confront. She stands as a mirror, not as a crutch. This is the essence of empowerment, not to diminish one's radiance for the comfort of others, but to remain whole even when others tremble in its presence. The Stoics remind us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius' words echo into the modern soul of every woman who struggles with the weight of male projection. The feminine mystery is not something she performs for others. It is simply who she is when she stops apologizing for her depth. And when she owns it, she is free. Men may come and go, some running in fear, others clinging in obsession. But the woman who stands rooted in her essence is unmoved, for she understands the paradox, that being feared and desired are two sides of the same coin, and she does not live to be either, she lives to be whole. It is at this stage that the feminine mystery reveals its final paradox. She is not meant to be possessed, but to be witnessed. Men who seek to cage her spirit will find that their grip only tightens around emptiness, for the feminine cannot be contained without losing its very essence. Her power lies in her fluidity, her unpredictability, her refusal to be reduced to a single definition. She is river, flame, storm, and stillness, ever-changing, yet eternally herself. And so the man who fears her is, in truth, afraid of change itself. He is afraid of dissolution, the loss of the rigid structures by which he has defined his identity. But the man who becomes addicted to her is intoxicated not merely by her body or beauty, but by the liberation he tastes in her presence. She dissolves his masks, shatters his defenses, strips him of falsehoods. He is drawn back, not because she makes him comfortable, but because she makes him alive. Yet the feminine mystery does not exist for his awakening alone. She herself journeys through a labyrinth of projections, myths, and cultural chains. For centuries, society has oscillated between worshipping and condemning her, Madonna or whore, goddess or temptress, muse or witch. These dualities are not her truth, but the shadows cast upon her by the collective male unconscious. To stand in her authentic self is therefore an act of rebellion. She must peel away the false identities laid upon her and return to the core of her being, where she is neither saint nor sinner, but sovereign. This sovereignty is what unsettles men the most. A woman who does not need validation, who does not crumble under neglect, who does not bend to manipulation, such a woman is untouchable. She is not cruel, but she is unshakable. She listens, but she does not obey out of fear. She loves, but she does not lose herself in that love. She offers connection, but she does not barter her soul for belonging. This kind of woman terrifies those who rely on control, for they realize they hold no power over her. And yet, it is precisely this sovereignty that draws men like moths to flame. For deep within the male psyche, there is a longing to encounter the archetypal feminine in her full strength. Jung called this the anima, the inner feminine that guides a man toward wholeness. When he meets a woman who embodies this energy, even imperfectly, he is drawn with a magnetic intensity. She awakens something ancient in him, something that whispers of freedom, depth, and authenticity. But this awakening is double-edged. To embrace it, he must surrender the illusions of dominance, ego, and false strength. He must enter the unknown, where he cannot rely on control, but only on presence. And here, the woman holds her greatest responsibility, not to shrink, not to soften her truth to soothe fragile egos, but to remain steady in her essence. When she embodies her wholeness, she becomes both mirror and guide, not by intention, but by nature. She reveals what is hidden, not by speaking it, but by being it. And in this revelation, men either rise or retreat. Those who rise are not submitting to her, but to their own deeper selves. Those who retreat are not escaping her, but their own fear of growth. The Stoic philosophers knew this truth well, though they did not speak of it in gendered terms. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his passions." And here lies the wisdom. The man addicted to the feminine mystery must decide whether he will be enslaved by his craving or liberated by his self-confrontation. The woman does not decide this for him. She simply stands as the threshold, the challenge, the storm that tests his resolve. And so the feminine mystery is not a game of seduction, nor a trick of manipulation. It is a natural law. Like gravity, it cannot be denied. Men will fear it because it unravels them. Men will crave it because it completes them. But the woman who embodies it need not chase, prove, or explain. She simply exists in her fullness, and the world bends around her presence. For in the end, the mystery is not about how men see her, but about how she sees herself. When she realizes that her worth is not measured by fear or desire, when she understands that her power is not dependent on how men react, she becomes untouchable. She does not wait to be chosen. She does not live to be validated. She stands in her sovereignty, radiant and unbroken. And the truth resounds like a final note in a long-forgotten song.